Wow, okay. So a few kind of housekeeping things for us to get started. During the webinar, I'm going to ask everyone to please turn your cameras off. It looks like most people have them off. The reason is because, well, if everybody turns their cameras on, this means that the signal will become very, very big. It will be difficult for the network to cope with everything. So hopefully everything will be a little bit smoother with cameras turned off. As well, because this is a webinar, there will be some stages where I will ask you to write things in the chat box to kind of respond. But for the most part, I'll ask you to keep your microphones turned off. Just to avoid any kind of background noise getting in the way, to make sure that we can hear everyone okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Seeing lots of yeses, yeps, good, good. So if anything comes up, if there's a problem with sound, something, please write it in the chat box. We'll get on trying to help you as soon as we can. And on that note, it's 4 o'clock, so let's go ahead and get started. And just need to find my Chrome window. Here we go. All right, so welcome everyone to today's session, where we're going to be talking about the 10 secret tips for IELTS writing. Now, who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, I work at a center called Grade Education Center in Kyiv, where I work as a senior teacher, teaching students of all levels, doing a lot of exam preparation. I also work as an educator for teachers, and I've been doing IELTS preparation for the better part of the last 4 or 5 years. So just for us to get started, we'd like to find out a little bit more about you all and the kinds of IELTS practice and preparation that you're looking for. I'm going to open a poll now with a few questions in it from on Zoom. These are questions about IELTS preparation. As we go through today, could you take a couple of minutes just to answer the questions? It'll take you just a few seconds, but it would give us a lot of information in terms of how to make our learning more effective, or our teaching more effective, and the kinds of things that you as people who are considering the IELTS exam are interested in. So I'm launching this right now. All right, so that's up. So everyone should be able to see it. At some point during the session, if you could please complete this, it will only take you a few minutes. The second kind of point of bookkeeping is that, well, we as a center, I'm going to give you more information about this later. We as a center are going to be offering you the chance to get a free Zoom tutorial with one of our IELTS experts. The way that you do this is by accessing a Google form that you'll need to fill out. I'm going to send it now. I'm also going to send it again at the end of the webinar. This is something that you can fill out, and you will be given the opportunity to win a free 30-minute tutorial with Anfisa, one of our IELTS experts, and you'll learn a lot more about who Anfisa is a little bit later in the session. So just for me to get a bit more information, now it looks like all of us are interested in taking the IELTS. First, is anyone familiar with our online platform here at Grade Education Center? See, I've got a couple people saying yes. So some people saying no. Okay, good. So you will find out a little bit more about it later. You'll have a chance to see a little bit of what I'm talking about with this. So for now, that's enough kind of bookkeeping. Let's get into it. So today we're talking about the 10 secret tips for IELTS writing. So why did we decide to do this? Well, we as a center work a lot with people preparing for the IELTS. And usually one of the scariest parts for the people who consider taking the IELTS is the writing. I know in my experience, whenever I bring up the topic of an essay, which is one of the tasks in the IELTS exam and the task that we're going to be focusing on today, I don't know about your reactions, but most of my students start to look a little bit like this. It's an intimidating, scary task for them. But hopefully today we're going to make it a bit less scary by giving some secret tips that we've gotten from our practice that we know work with our students. So our secret tips are here. Now, surely you didn't think it was that easy. We're going to be building these secret tips as we go through the session. Can you take a minute? Does anyone have any ideas what some of these might be? How I might complete some of these tips? Some of them are completed with one word, some of them have a short phrase. See some people saying one instructions, not a bad guess. So lots of people have ideas about number one. Okay, we've got read the book carefully. So topics. Okay, topic for number three, again, not a bad guess. Okay, so let's see. Number four, we've got explain your ideas. Again, a very good guess. So let's go ahead and get started with it. For us to warm up, we're going to be looking at an example of IELTS writing. Now, here you can see three different prompts. And it looks like the color's gone a bit wonky, but that's okay. You're going to see an IELTS essay in a second that was submitted, that was written. Here you can see three of the topics. It could be that nowadays many people in cities live alone. What are the reasons? Is it positive or negative? Nowadays many people live in the cities rather than the countryside. Or the last one, nowadays many people live alone. What are the reasons for it? Is it a positive or a negative trend? I'm going to show you the essay. I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes to read the essay. After you've read the essay, can you type in the chat box which of the prompts, which of the topics below the essay was written on? Which prompt was the essay responding to? You can type 1, 2, or 3 in the chat box. So I'm going to show it here. Can you take 2 or 3 minutes, read it on your own, and when you're ready, type 1, 2, or 3 in the chat box. All right, we've got some answers coming in. We've got 1s, 3s, 2s. We've got lots of all of the answer coming in. So I'm going to show you the answer. This was actually written as a response to number 1, that many people in cities live alone. What are the reasons? Is it positive or negative? Now, you maybe felt that it was a bit challenging to say exactly which one of the prompts was the original, was really it. There's a reason for this. That is that this, it's not that you were inattentive, it's that I set you up to make a mistake. Because this essay actually has some problems with it that make it difficult for us to find the real topic. For us to find out what those are, let's look at the topic in detail, which is going to be our first secret tip: to read the prompt carefully. So if we look here, we can see some key words. What are the key words in this prompt? If we say the most important words that tell me as the student what to write about, what are the most important words that we see here? So some people saying in cities, live alone. See trend, reasons. Good, lots of good ideas coming in. Our key ideas we can see here, that people in cities, let me turn on my pointer, that people in cities live alone. What are the reasons for it? And positive or negative, meaning that in this task, we have to do 3 things. The first thing is that we need to, well, see the topic that we're writing about: people in cities living alone, not just people living alone and not just people in cities, but particularly people in cities who live alone. We need to give reasons for it, that is, we need to explain it, and we need to give our own opinion about whether or not it's something good or bad. So if we go back to our original text, we can see that actually there's a big problem with one of our paragraphs. Here, one of these paragraphs actually talks about the wrong thing. Can you have a quick look again? Take about a minute. Can you find the paragraph 1, 2, 3, or 4 which talks about the wrong thing? Lots of answers coming in. Yes, everyone thinks it's, so we've got 1 or 2. So let's see. Well, if we look at them, 1 is okay. Got city residents, so people in cities, live on their own, live alone, fine. Which will be elaborated on. I will give you details. And personally, I believe it has upsides and downsides, so positive or negative. Okay. The second paragraph, on the other hand, talks about the wrong thing. Here, we've got many people decide to live in large cities. Life is rich in entertainment, attractive. Cities are business and financial centers. Great, cool, but this isn't talking about why people live alone, only why people live in cities. So because of that, the paragraph is not on topic, and this would be a problem on the exam. Is it positive or negative? Well, if we look at paragraph 3 from an individual's point of view, it has both upsides and downsides. cool, we're talking about this negative, positive and negative trend, and the last paragraph, a conclusion. This is absolutely fine. So why is this important? Why do we need to read the prompt carefully? Because this is one of the biggest problems that people have when they start writing, is that they don't read the prompt carefully enough, and they don't talk about all of the things they need to. So this gets us to our second key tip, which is answer the question in the task. That each of our prompts is going to have at least 2, possibly 3 key points that we need to discuss, and we need to talk about all of them. And the next point, number 3, to stay on topic. That is, if we have to talk about people who live alone in cities, it's very important that we don't get sidetracked talking about cities and forget to talk about people who live alone there. This is important because if we look at the criteria for a 7, we've got that it addresses all parts, presents a clear position, that is a clear opinion, it presents, extends, and supports main ideas. We'll get to that later, but the key thing in the first one, addresses all parts of the task. I see a question coming in. What about the question, do you agree or disagree? We do have a whole paragraph talking about that. So if we look here, this whole third paragraph is answering this question. Do you agree or disagree? Well, we don't have agree or disagree here. We've only got positive or negative. And we've got a whole paragraph here, paragraph 3, about positive and negative. But we'll talk about that a bit more in a minute. So the second and third, very important points. Answer the question in the task and stay on topic. And both of these are absolutely critical if you're thinking about getting a 7, because you cannot get a 7 without doing these things. And not doing them, in most cases, will automatically result in a score which is less than 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace paragraph 2 with this one. Can you have a quick look through it? Does this paragraph match our topic, giving reasons why city dwellers, why people who live in cities live alone? Does this paragraph match our topic better than the first one? So I see some yeses coming in. Yes, this paragraph matches our topic much better than the original one. Because here in the very beginning, city dwellers live alone. So we know right from the first sentence that we are on topic. In the prompt, we were also asked to give reasons. How many reasons? Good. Someone's just typed it in the chat box that 2 reasons are given, and we can see them here. Firstly, and secondly, due to a chance to meet a partner. Now, if we look at these and we look a little bit closer, we can see that they're not just stating the sentence. They're not just saying, people tend to think about their careers, and people can meet partners, because that's not enough. Here, we have an additional sentence. As a result, they become too obsessed with the goals they want to achieve, and there is little time left for their private lives. So we've got one sentence making our point, and we have a second sentence explaining our point, explaining why it's important and or giving an example of it. if we look at the second reason, can we also see this? Does the second reason also have a sentence that explains it? Right. So more opinions coming in. Secondly, due to the additional chance, right, this is our second point, our second key point that we're making, but we also have our explanation. Thus, they have too many people to choose from. For this reason, their sportful choice. So for each of our sentences, for each of our key points, we have a sentence which explains them and expands on why they're important. This is also important. That is our fourth key point, to develop our opinions. Examples are important too. Exactly. We see something coming in. Yes, examples can be important. Typically, when we talk about this, you need either an example or, in most cases, either an example or a reason for each key point. It's possible to have both, an example and a reason. It really depends on the point that you're trying to make. So in this paragraph, we don't have any examples, but I would say that in this paragraph, giving an example would be kind of challenging. And in this particular paragraph, it's a little bit easier to give reasons. But you're absolutely correct, Yulia, that examples may also be used, and they're also very important. So we're going to go back to our original text. Now, yes, our second paragraph is problematic. Yes, it's off topic. Okay, we know this already. This doesn't mean that the whole essay is bad, though, because the essay overall does some very good things. One of which is that it states its opinion clearly. Where do we know? How do we know what this person thinks? Actually, I'll ask you. Can you put in the chat, does this particular person think that living on your own in a city is good, bad, or both? So lots of people, yeah, no certain opinion, both. Well, let's have a look, because lots of people who said both came in very quickly. The reason for this is because this person has clearly stated their opinion. Now, at the beginning, we've got personally, I believe this trend has both upsides and downsides. They've also restated their opinion at the end. While I am of the opinion that there are both advantages and disadvantages. So they've clearly stated their opinion. How many times in the essay? How many times have they clearly stated their opinion? Right, people coming in twice, right. Once at the beginning and once at the end. And this is another very important thing for writing on the IELTS, is that your opinion is very, very clear. If we go way, way, way back to our criteria for a 7, we can see here that you present a clear position or opinion throughout the response. So what we think needs to be very clear to the person reading it. Because of that, we need to say it both at the beginning and the end. We've got a question coming in. Should we summarize a paragraph at the end in one sentence? That's something we're going to talk about in a bit, but yes. Possibly, if we look at our paragraph here, these two factors seem to be growing in importance in modern cities. Kind of a little conclusion here. If we look at our sentence here, it is characteristic of a human being to share their feelings and thoughts with someone they can trust. So again, yes, kind of summarizing, well, in the first case, yes, we've got a summary of the paragraph. In the second case, well, not so much. So again, if it makes sense, it's not necessary in all cases to provide a one-sentence conclusion at the end of a paragraph. In some cases, it can be helpful, particularly when you're explaining reasons. However, if you're giving reasons for and against, or advantages and disadvantages in the same paragraph, it may be difficult to do this, which is why we don't see one in this paragraph. Now, another key point here is that, another key point here is that our writing is structured and our ideas are linked. So first, let's talk about what we mean by this. What do we mean by structured? So if we look at the most basic level, this isn't just a wall of text. It has paragraphs. It's cleanly separated. This is actually a criterion on the IELTS that you write the essay using paragraphs. However, the structure goes a bit deeper than that, because some of the ideas are also linked. If we have a look at the words which I've underlined in blue, we can see, personally, I believe that this trend, those who want to earn a lot of money, who is those? Well, if we go back, well, people, the people that we've already talked about. Where one can build a career talking about people they prefer, those who live alone. That is using a lot of these pronouns. Pronouns, and if we look in the case of the last one, for the reasons given above, using articles, using pronouns and articles to talk about the ideas that you've already mentioned is another key point on the task. And it is something which is assessed as part of organization. And it's something that can help you get points on the test. The ideas are also linked not only by these pronouns, but also by the words that I've underlined in purple. That is our linkers. Personally, indeed, additionally, as well as from the individual point of view. And we have linkers that do a lot of different things. We have linkers that are used to introduce opinions. We have linkers that are used to add information, such as indeed, additionally, as well as. We have linkers to show contrast on the one hand, on the other hand. Linkers to change topics, or structuring linkers, like from the individual point of view to conclude. So we've got a lot of linkers in this text. Actually, if we look, how often can we say that these linkers are used? Like every sentence, every 2 sentences? Generally, how often do we see linkers? Yeah, lots of people coming in, yeah, saying almost every sentence. And this is actually correct, almost every sentence. Not every single sentence, but every 1 or 2 sentences, we're going to need a linker, as well as if we want to make some more complex sentences, like in the case of as well as. So here we've got 3 key points that we can take away, and those are use paragraphs, number 1, something very simple but people very often forget. 2, talk about the ideas you've already mentioned, reference them, this, that, these, those, the ideas I mentioned earlier, and use linkers, and use a lot of them, because this is also going to help your score. Let's see, where are we? Talking about ideas are linked, there is another way that ideas can be linked. Now, if we look at this essay and we follow it all the way through, we can see in the beginning, personally, I believe this trend has upsides and downsides. Then if we look in paragraph 3, we say, okay, on the one hand, there are more chances to achieve life goals. Great, good thing. On the other hand, here's a problem, bad thing. At the end, there are both advantages and disadvantages. That is, the ideas in the text, not only the language, but the ideas also make sense. It's good and bad. Here are good and bad things. It's good and bad. Something that often happens in my own experience, talking about people who, and essays that I've checked from students, well, to give an example of something I often see, let's think about, Yulia, I've seen your question. We'll get back to that in a minute. If we think about the ideas overall, I'm going to use the comparison of buying a car. Now, what very often happens is that, for example, students will say, well, this car has both good things and bad things. It'll break down all the time. The air conditioning doesn't work, so it will be very hot in the summer. People like to steal this type of car. In conclusion, there are good and bad things, but I think you should buy it. Which understandably leaves the reader thinking a bit like, what? You told me there's good and bad things, and you've only told me bad things, and now you're saying it's mixed. This is a big problem, and this is something that will also prevent a paper from getting higher marks on the test. That is to say, if you're saying it's mixed, you need to present ideas that are mixed, good and bad. If you're saying it's good, you need to focus on the good. And in the conclusion, it should be clear that it's good. Whereas if you say it's mixed and then only talk about bad things, probably it's bad. And this needs to be clear in your introduction and your conclusion. There's a comment on paragraph structure one more time. A paragraph structure very generally is going to have a topic sentence. If we look at this one, many people decide to live in key cities. So my paragraph is about reasons. A point, life in a cosmopolitan center is rich in various kinds of entertainment. And our sentence expanding on it. Indeed, large cities are businesses and financial centers. So typically a paragraph structure on the IELTS is going to be key point, introduction, topic sentence, that is, key point, explanation or example, and then we're going to repeat this, key point, explanation, example, key point, explanation, example, as many times as we need, and then possibly finish with a one-sentence summary. Depending on the paragraph, the summary may or may not be necessary. Okay, so let's go back through here. So we're going to keep looking at this, which means we're going to get to our point number 8, which is to use a variety of language. That is, if we have a look here, in the prompt we had people who live in large cities tend to live alone. Now, if we have a look here, we can see city residents, life in the cosmopolitan center, business financial centers, larger towns, infrastructure and medical services, stressful urban environment. So our writer hasn't just repeated the phrase city, 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 city. However, we can see in pink, we can see that, well, they have needed to repeat this phrase, large cities. Well, in a text or in a topic where we have to talk about, for example, big cities, there are only so many ways. There are only so many synonyms that I can use correctly and in the correct context for the essay there are only so many synonyms that I can use, which means that, well, it may be necessary for me to repeat some more general words and phrases to get the writing finished. However, have a look at the pink and the red sentences. Has the writer used large cities back to back, like 2 times next to each other? Right, so lots of people coming in saying no, and that's absolutely correct. So in some topics, it may be possible and you may be able to use different synonyms every time and get this really cool variety of language. Some prompts are going to be much more difficult to do this in. So if it's necessary to use the same word or phrase like large cities over and over again, that's okay. What we're going to do to get this variety is we're going to put something else in the middle of them. So large cities, synonym. Large cities, synonym. Large cities, synonym. This way, we're avoiding this repetitive language, and we're still able to get the points for using a variety of language, which is also something assessed on the IELTS. Using safe but repetitive language is not going to get you as many points, and the bands for higher marks all have a requirement that you use a variety of both vocabulary and grammar structures during the test. Think about it as a chance to, in many ways, show off what you know. The next point is for us to avoid what we'll call simple slips. To look at this, here you can see a short task. We're going to look at four sentences that have problems in terms of the task 2 essay. Here you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 kind of problems. So let's have a look at the first one. Can you write in the chat 1, 2, 3, or 4? Which one is the problem with sentence number 1? So lots of people coming in saying number 3, absolutely correct. Contractions. When we're learning English, we learn to use all these short forms. Our teachers beat them into us with a hammer. Congratulations, welcome to the IELTS, and now we have to stop using them. Because for formal essay writing, they don't quite fit. So here, it would need to be it is, can't would need to be cannot. And this is a very common slip. It's something very easy to do if you're not thinking about it. So for example, we drag and drop just like we did in the session. Short forms are too informal, personal addressing, too informal, and starting sentences. And we can check. It'll give us, and you will receive feedback and an explanation from our teaching staff. In this case, this is from one of our course developers and one of our superstar teachers, Andrei Pigarev. He gives a nice explanation of what the issues are and why these things are important. And it will also give us the opportunity to practice. It's showing this is complete already because I worked through this on my own before the session. So you not only get the chance to see it and learn the rules, you get the chance to practice with feedback. In this case, feedback from Natalia, another one of our IELTS superstars. More practice editing out the problems that we can retype as it is, itted. Can someone help me? Itted would be it It would be, so if we go, it'll even check and, oh no, I forgot one, and it won't let me progress until I've got it correct. So there are different units. So this keeps going. We could keep going with this forever. So it keeps going through all the different units. I'm going to go back to the main. And there are units like this for all things. If we look at task 2, we talked about prompts like we had today, such as an advantages, disadvantages essays. Ta-da! We can see here different tasks on analyzing the task, seeing models of it, working on editing and improving essays, and chances to practice with the chance to see a model afterwards. We have the same for writing task 1 that you can work through. For example, the line graph with an explanation of what the task is, how to go through it, how to read the tasks, how to help work with them. These go for every part of the exam, even containing things like useful language for essays, linkers, useful ideas. For example, a task focusing on linkers and successfully utilizing all of these different linkers for connecting your ideas in writing and getting the chance to practice using them. As well, there's the chance to do a full practice test at the end, which is timed, so you get the chance to go through and do it. And as well, the opportunity, depending on the plan you have, to provide feedback. You also will see a writing bank. So anything that you've learned is accessible right up here. For example, strategies. All the strategies that you've learned are saved, and you get a summary in short form with model answers for everything that you've done. So you don't necessarily have to go back and work through the unit again. You get all the information in a nice, short, readable section that you can access for your own study. And as you can see, there is a lot of information here that can be accessed, that you can use. All right, so talking about it, so if this is something you're interested in, if this is something that you're interested in using, and from my experience, using the platform, working through it, I can honestly say that in my experience, this is infinitely better than almost all of the materials that I've used for IELTS prep in the past. That's course books, written materials. Why? For a very simple reason, that it breaks everything down more. It breaks everything down into small steps and really gives you this in-depth feedback on what you're doing.